What's going on, everyone? West here, bringing you another video. This time on a video related to nuclear weapons. Now, I have never publicly made my opinion known about nuclear weapons on this channel or any other previous channels known about it, so I'm just gonna say them straight up. I don't like them. They're fucking terrifying. They're fucking terrifying. Like, if there was a nuclear war, nuclear winter, like of the worst kinds, the worst magnitude, the worst case scenarios that we've seen in fiction, that we've seen from military analysts, that we've seen from just political social analysts, just scientists, just all these different analysts who've made these predictions through various memes, journals, documentary films, other places, videos on YouTube. If we've actually seen, if something like that actually occurred, we would be fucked up. It would be a very bad thing. Terrible thing. And things are not the same anymore since the Cold War ended. Like, we don't fear nuclear weapons as much as a whole, as a population, but we should, because countries still have them, and there's more countries now than there were back in 1991 that have nuclear weapons, including North Korea. Although I will say North Korea's nuclear stockpile is questionable, for one thing. They don't have that many nuclear weapons compared to a country like the US or Russia. Furthermore, on top of that, their capabilities are not as significant as, let's say, the US's capabilities or Russia's capabilities. They could do some significant damage, though, to places like Japan or South Korea. They could possibly reach the mainland US, but probability speaking, not as much, probably not as much damage caused compared to if they decided to aim a missile at Seoul or Tokyo, or another part of Japan or South Korea. Basically, I think that nuclear weapons should be just taken down. We shouldn't have nuclear weapons anymore. It's just not worth it. And obviously, these nations know that, because they have never launched a nuclear weapon ever since Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And even that is being, even to this very day, those two events are very controversial, for good reason too, because a huge debate has been going on about the events. Was it worth it? If so, why? If not, why was it not worth it? What are the ramifications? I'm just, whatever side of the fence you're on, I think most of us can agree that at the very least, excuse me, I believe that most of us can agree that at least it was just those two attacks. I don't know why I paused there. They were attacks. They were events, but they were also attacks. I don't know why I paused it. That was silly of me. But we can agree that it was just those two, and it hasn't been anything else since. Because for those of you that don't know, at one point during the Korean War, from 1950 to 53, Douglas MacArthur put up a plan to use nuclear weapons in a more military strategy way. He didn't really want to attack cities. What he wanted to do was create a buffer zone, but it just didn't seem feasibly logistical, and it was also controversial back then. There were people like, this is not a good idea. And one of the reasons that it probably was a good idea to never have done that is because it probably could have opened up the Pandora's box of nuclear weapons. Basically, if Douglas MacArthur was allowed to use those nuclear weapons at the border of China and North Korea, then it basically, could have just set off a chain reaction, basically in Pandora's box. Since they were using them, what's to stop the Soviet Union from using them? What's to stop China from using them? What's to stop these other countries from using them? Once you open up that box, you can't really control it. It's out of control. It leads to disaster. So, the fact that we haven't used those weapons ever since Nagasaki and Hiroshima, I think most of us can agree is a good thing. That being said, there are still a lot of nuclear weapons. Now, the reason why I bring up not China, excuse me, Japan, is because in the title of this video, Japan calls for a denuclearized world on the 72nd anniversary of Hiroshima. 72 years ago, man. 72 years ago. It's crazy. It really is. That was only, think about that, people. That was only 72 years ago. That may seem like it was a long time ago, but it really wasn't. It really was not a long time ago. So there was a gathering, a ceremony, where representatives from many nations and people from many nations came to the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Park. The Prime Minister of Japan called for a global cooperation to end nuclear programs. This is his quote here. For us to truly realize a world without nuclear weapons, the participation of both nuclear weapon states and non-nuclear weapon states is necessary. And I 100% agree with him. I also 100% agree that it's time to end nuclear weapons. They are not a good thing. They just cause nothing but destruction and harm. There are benefits to using nuclear power to power cities, to power life, to power our world. But the very opposite of that is destruction and chaos and devastation. And we shouldn't be, we shouldn't be allowed to do that. We shouldn't have that be a thing. We should get rid of these nuclear weapons before it's too late to before we screw up, because there have been close calls, and they weren't even intentional. They were accidents. There was one in 1983 where there was a malfunction with Soviet detection systems, and they were detecting all these missiles from the United States coming towards the Soviet Union, and most of the people thought, oh shit, the United States just launched a bunch of missiles at us. We gotta retaliate and just launch back. Except for one guy, one person, who said, no, we don't know this for certain. Let's investigate. Let's not jump to conclusions. Let's critically think about this. Let's analyze this. And guess what? He was fucking right. Turns out that the radar systems were not working properly. They were malfunctioning. They were detecting these missiles that weren't even there. They were non-existent. And if no one listened to him, if he wasn't in a position of authority to stop missiles from launching, we could have all been screwed. We could have been screwed. We nearly caused a World War III through nuclear strike by accident in 1983. And there's been other close calls too. So it's like there have been close calls. And there's been close calls on smaller scales too when it comes to nuclear weapons. Not an all-out nuclear war, but potentially just a nuclear bomb accidentally going off. There was one that took place from a plane. A plane accidentally dropped a nuclear device in the continental United States. I should really do a video about this, by the way, on my other YouTube channel, Twilight City Studios. Just a documentary about the mess-ups and the close calls of nuclear weapons. Just to show people, like, hey, look how many times we've come close to a nuclear disaster of some kind. So there was a nuclear weapon, I think it was in the Carolinas, that basically it dudded. It didn't work. Thankfully, it didn't work, because it could have killed a lot of people. And that would have been an accident too. And hey, we don't even need to, see we can look at other instances too of actual accidents becoming a reality, like Chernobyl. Now that was an example of, nuclear power going bad, just a malfunction with the nuclear reactors. But that just shows you the power of nuclear. It's just the power of nuclear. The fact that this power plant that was meant for good, when it wasn't working properly, when things didn't go right, how it exploded and caused the deaths of all these people. And then the after effects from the radiation, you get people having cancer, you get people with other diseases. And same thing with Hiroshima and Nagasaki, how even though there were some people that survived, they still have to deal with these cancers for the rest of their lives. Or, they might have some kids, but those kids have birth defects, or those people just have physical disabilities now because of the stuff. You know, this is not worth it. There's nothing good about. There's nothing really. There's nothing that good that really go. There's not really much goodness that comes out of a nuclear strike. You know, and this shit just terrifies me too. I'm honestly surprised there's more people out there who are not terrified of this. Maybe they are. They just don't want to think about it. They just want to. They don't want to think about it in their minds because it's a scary thing. It is scary. It is really scary. Last month, the United Nations reached its first agreement to ban nuclear weapons, but Japan, along with the 9 nuclear-armed nations, including the United States, refused to take part in the negotiations and the vote. Not cool. Critics of the treaty, including the United States, say it does nothing to counter the grave threat posed by North Korea's nuclear program. Member states can sign the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons next month. If ratified, it will be put into effect 90 days later, reports the New York Times. So, I can see where the United States is coming from, the government of the United States. And I agree to a certain extent there is a threat from North Korea with their nuclear weapons program, and it should be stopped. It really should be stopped. I think it's absurd that Kim Jong-un is funding, instead of investing in things for the betterment of his own people, he's investing in these nuclear weapons that are just going to be used as a political tool, a bargaining chip, basically. And the worst case scenario, he might actually fucking use the damn things. Like, it's scary. And like, I don't live close to North Korea at all, but there's hundreds of millions of people that do. Alone in just Japan and North Korea, there's tens of millions of people that live in those countries. Seoul is very close to the border of North Korea, and like, it's a very dangerous game going on over there. It's very messed up. It's very crazy. It's frightening. But I mean, something's got to be done about these nuclear weapons, people. I'm not entirely sure what we should do about it, but I think this is a step forward, this United Nations thing here. I think it's a step forward when the Japanese Prime Minister, whose country is the only country in the world who's been attacked by nuclear weapons, is saying that. I think it's very encouraging, and I feel like more people should take an aggressive stance against nuclear weapons. I know I'm doing that right now by making this video. I'm voicing my opinion. I hope other people get the memo too with that. So, that wraps up this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out my other videos on this channel. Check out my other YouTube channel, like I said, Twilight City Studios, my own indie/video production studio channel. I might do a documentary about nuclear weapons, or maybe not. I don't know, but it would be an interesting topic to do for a documentary. I have done documentary topics before on Ukrainian Independence Day and on Pearl Harbor. I'm also working on a documentary right now for Chester, the former lead singer of Linkin Park. So I hope to have that up soon, within a week or two.